I quit my job as an OBGYN in private practice. It's taken me a really long time to make this video, and it took me an even longer time to make this decision. This was not a decision that I just randomly decided to do on a whim. It was something that I pretty much thought about for 8 to 9 months and finally came to the point where I had to leave my job. I'm Dr. Ali, I'm an OBGYN, and here are my 4 reasons as to why I left private practice. I'm going to quickly explain what it means to work in private practice. As a doctor, you have many different options as to what you can do with your career, whether that's a hospitalist, joining a private practice, starting your own practice, whatever it may be. When I graduated residency in 2020, I joined a private practice, and it was a group of 7 doctors once I joined. Working in private practice means that you work in an office setting. You have your own private patients that are assigned to you. See these patients in an office setting. As an OBGYN, because we do deliveries and we do surgeries, as a private practice, you also have a contract with a hospital. Some private practices have contracts with multiple hospitals in their city. In my case, we had a contract with one hospital where we would do our deliveries and our surgeries at that one hospital. So a private practice means I have my own patients in the office, and then I also deliver them or I do their surgeries alongside a hospital. Reason number 1 why I left my job was my schedule. The practice I joined was a little bit different because yes, we were a private practice, but then we also served as the hospitalist of the hospital we had a contract with. What the heck is a hospitalist? Now, there are many different types of hospitalists that you can find in a hospital, whether that's in internal medicine, as an OBGYN, multiple different specialties can have a hospital. So for us specifically, we were the OB hospitalist at this hospital. What that means is any sort of patient that would come into the hospital that was a no-doc patient, meaning their doctor didn't come to that hospital to deliver, maybe they didn't have any prenatal care throughout their pregnancy, they came in precipitously delivering, we were the doctor on call to take care of those patients. On top of that, we also had our own private patients to take care of. So if you could imagine working in a very, very busy labor and delivery, having our own private patients to take care of, but then also taking care of the no-doc or the drop-in patients that would come in, our shifts when we were on call were very, very busy. When we worked our call shifts, our structure was doing 24-hour call shifts. It wasn't always like this, but about 8 months into my job, they decided to make the change to 24-hour shifts, and I hated it. Before that, we would do 12-hour shifts, which I thought was manageable and a little bit more reasonable, because these 24-hour shifts, we were in-house, meaning we could not leave the hospital. Because on labor and delivery, if someone comes in precipitous delivering, if there's an emergency, which can happen like that on labor and delivery, there had to be a doctor in-house 24/7. So I was not allowed to leave the hospital during those full 24 hours. Like I said, we had a very, very busy schedule because we had our own private patients, which again was a very busy practice, but now we have drop-in patients and no-doc patients to take care of. So during the span of those 24 hours, I was not sleeping. It would be very rare if I actually had a shift where I could sleep for more than 3 or 4 hours. And again, these aren't like consecutive 3 to 4 hours. This was like a 30-minute nap here, an hour nap there. But these sleeping times were always interrupted by phone calls by nurses, which is fine. I mean, they're doing their job. I want them to call me. But right, I don't want you to think that this is restful sleep. It wasn't, and it was very, very hard. When we first started doing the 24-hour shifts, it truly wasn't that bad. I felt like I was adapting well, but then over time, working 24 hours after 24 hours after 24 hours, and you're not sleeping, that's going to catch up to you, and it really, really affects how you feel, how you react, and it was not good. In residency, they do train us to work a lot. We work 80, sometimes more than 80 hours a week, and we do 24-hour shifts in residency. The biggest difference of working a 24-hour shift in residency and a 24-hour shift in private practice, they're with an intern, with a second year, maybe with a chief, and you had your attending, so you were never alone. Now, as an attending in private practice, you are alone, which is fine. I was trained for this, and I was prepared. It's not like I was nervous in that sense. But it does tend to become very lonely and also very hard. The loneliness aspect of it then starts to also play into your mental health when you're running on 23 hours of no sleep. Throughout my time in private practice, I also had an Aura ring, and the Aura ring, right, monitors your sleep. It predicts like how your energy and your mood levels are gonna be and all that stuff. wearing my Aura ring during one of those shifts and then seeing my stats and my numbers afterward were kind of like a wake-up call and a reality check for me. I'm not lying when I tell you, coming home after a 24-hour shift, it was not me. I was a different person. You can ask my husband, you can ask my family about it. I was not the same person. I was extremely exhausted. I was very sad. I was very negative about myself. This is making me emotional. But I was a completely different person. Even when I would come home, I would pass out immediately and sleep till about 2 or 3 p.m. You're still off because you're sleeping during the daytime. I was off that day, so I had 24 hours to recover. But honestly, the worst part of it is that after that 24-hour recovery day off, I had to be back in the office or back during surgery or back for another 24-hour shift. And those 48 hours post not sleeping for 24 hours, you feel like you got hit by a car or like a zombie. There were times where like my body physically hurt, and it's not like I was working out or anything like that. Now, doing these type of 24-hour shifts here and there, I was able to manage them, but we were required to do sometimes 5 a month or 8 a month, and honestly, it kills you. It really catches up to you. Now, I'm still very young. I love my job. I love the career I chose. I would go back and be an OBGYN if given another opportunity, but this schedule was simply just not sustainable. I reached a point where I didn't want to look back at my life when I was in my 50s or 60s and regret not having more time to actually do things that I loved, because not getting enough sleep was really catching up to me. That leads me to my second reason as to why I quit my job, and that was my mental health. Like I mentioned, I reached a point where I didn't recognize myself, and I had family members, friends, and my husband commenting on how I was changing, how my mood was changing, how I was more short-fused, how I didn't want to leave the couch, I didn't want to get out of bed in the morning. And that is not who I am. It was almost at times like I was viewing myself from this like outside perspective and just seeing me kind of just mosey around through life, but not actually being happy. I mean, I would have happy moments. I'm a very positive person, but the lows were so low that I had to get out. Along with that, this past year of 2022 was really, really hard for me. I was also studying for oral boards at that time, which oral boards are something that you have to take to become a board certified OBGYN, which thank God I passed, yay to me. That was really good news, but preparing for that exam, which is so grueling and so long, on top of working all of these crazy shifts, delivering so many babies and just being so overworked, 2022 was really tough. It was really tough on my mental health, and I had to take a minute to step back and say, no more, something has to change. I reached my breaking point in January of 2023 after the craziest shift I ever had in my entire life. When we worked on the weekends, there were 2 doctors on call. One would do 24s on Friday, Sunday, and one would do 24s on Saturday. It was my turn to do a Friday, Sunday, 24-hour shifts, which I absolutely hated. And between those 2 days, I delivered 18 babies. I did not sleep on Friday, and I did not sleep on Sunday. By Sunday at around 4 o'clock in the morning, I realized that something had to change. A part of me was breaking. I was struggling. And with the way everything was set up with my job, we had no backup. So again, it got to the point where it felt unsafe. Shortly thereafter, I resigned. The reason why I quit is that I simply had other passions in my life, and I just didn't want to be a working slave to this job. Yes, I love my job as an OBGYN. Obviously, I've created this whole social media, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram around my job. But while I love my job and I love taking care of my patients, I also love educating, I love empowering, I love traveling, I love spending time with my family and friends. I want to do things that genuinely make me happy. I reached a point with that job where I was more sad and unsatisfied than I was happy. And I knew there were other opportunities available to me, so why not explore those options? I'm gonna make another video explaining what I do now, because I'm still working as an OBGYN, but a slightly different role. Now I have much more time to dive into my passions, to continue with YouTube, to maybe write a book, to maybe start a podcast, to travel more, to, I don't know, literally do what I want to do. And my final reason why I decided to leave were changes that were going on in the office setting. I mentioned at the beginning of the video, in private practice, you work in an office where you see patients. So when I first signed and joined that group, it was physician-owned. Then after a year of working there, that was sold by a corporation. This is something that is happening a lot in the United States, where a lot of big corporations and businesses are buying out private practices, and that can cause a lot of issues. Now, it can also bring up a lot of positive change and good things, but overall, I was seeing more of the negative side of it, and I didn't really love it. I wish I had a solution as to how we could fix this whole problem with medicine and healthcare in the United States, how we can get rid of 24-hour calls, how we can get rid of these businesses telling doctors how to do their job, because they're not clinicians, they didn't go to medical school, they're not licensed, yet they can dictate our schedules and how we work, and it can become very frustrating. Also have issues of insurance and prior auths, and don't even get me started. Now I'm just rambling. Healthcare is broken, and this was partially why I left this particular situation. Things were starting to change in the office, going down to seeing patients for 5 and 10-minute visits, which I want you to just sit with that for a minute. Some patients, some of you, wait months to see a doctor, and you are only allotted 5 or 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes to sit with them. And that is not okay with me. That is not the type of medicine that I want to practice. I get it, these corporations are seeing dollar signs, and the more patients you see, the more you can bill. But again, not something I want to practice. Also, have you met me? I am Miss Chatty Cathy, and as an OBGYN, to be completely honest, a 10-minute visit, sure, it might work for a woman who's on her 5th pregnancy, who's completely healthy, who's done this 4 other times, she's normal, there's no issues going on. Sure, a 10-minute visit may be okay for that person, but God forbid they have a couple questions. And for an annual well woman exam, a 10-15-minute visit, that can go like that. Think about it. You go to the doctor's office, they call you back, you get your vitals taken, you sit down, the medical assistant is asking all these questions, the time is ticking. The time is already ticking at that point. So sometimes by the time I actually walk in the door to see you, we have 8 minutes of our visit left. And as an OBGYN, we do a physical exam, we do a pelvic exam. That is not something that should be rushed. It should not be forced. You need to know your patient. You need to meet them and let them feel comfortable. Let them get to know you, because what we do is very intimate. Now, maybe for other aspects of medicine, someone who's just maybe just listening to heart lungs and not being so invasive, sure, maybe they have a little bit more time. I, for one, don't want to rush what I do. And sometimes pelvic exams and pap smears can take longer, or you need to talk about something else, you find something, and let's just say I was always running behind in the office. I apologize if you were one of my patients and you had to wait, but this again was not sustainable. A lot of the times when you're waiting at a doctor's office, think about the fact that maybe they're running behind because they had a difficult patient, difficult news they had to deliver, and they're only allotted 5, 10, 15-minute visits. Again, healthcare is so broken in this country. So there were a lot of changes with the office I didn't agree with. Also, the charting that goes along with our job in medicine is never ending. I would come home after working a full day in the office to finish charts or sign off on labs. So again, if we ever order lab work on you or blood work, that goes sent out to a lab, and then we get the results. We have to interpret them, make sure they're normal. If they're abnormal, we message you, we call you, we schedule you for follow-up, we need extra imaging, and all of that takes time. We review images of ultrasounds, of CTs, whatever it may be. So on top of seeing 30 plus patients a day, back to back to back in these 10-minute visits. Also signing off on labs, you need to do that in a timely manner. It can't just sit on your inbox. So it got to the point where it was really overwhelming. You're running on lack of sleep. It was just, again, for me, not sustainable. I felt like I was just really negative right there. Now, there were a lot of positive aspects of my job, and I don't want you to think like this was like a super easy decision for me to make, because trust me, I went back and forth in this forever. The number one reason why I did not want to leave my job was my patients. I was obsessed with my patients. I love caring for them. I feel like as an OBGYN, you have a great opportunity to form such a strong bond with your patients because you see them so frequently throughout pregnancy. You see them throughout such difficult times and exciting times, and it's just, you form such a strong bond that it was really hard for me to make that decision. I felt like I was letting people down by quitting. whether it was my patients, my coworkers, the nurses I worked with, the medical assistants I worked with, like everyone. I felt like I was letting people down. You reach a point where when you don't recognize who you are anymore and you just are faking it till you make it, it's not okay. And it's okay to put yourself first in that instance. I'm still working on that, to be completely honest. I still feel guilty and how the whole situation ended, but I also feel this like weight has come off of my shoulders and I feel much more free, but it's also going to take time to transition. I genuinely loved the majority of my coworkers. I loved working in the office and the people that I encountered, my patients and stuff like that. But again, when I sat down and actually looked at my life and what I wanted out of my life, this was just not a job that I wanted. Now, who's to say I may go back to private practice at some time in my life, but right now, this was the correct decision for me. Like I mentioned in a couple videos, I'm then going to explain what I'm doing now and what my new schedule is gonna look like, what I'm doing, and stay tuned for that. I don't want this video to be completely negative. My 3 years in private practice, I have learned and grown so much in my own life, but also as a doctor, and it truly made me a better doctor. But I didn't want these 3 years to turn into 20 years and then look back on my life and not be happy. This is for me, and this is what's working for me. I understand and realize that some people may like the schedule that I had and be completely fine working it. I just knew that something had to change. And I'm really happy with my decision, and I'm excited for the future. Excited to continue to make content for you all, so if you have any other recommendations, questions, ideas for topics, or something that you want me to talk about, please leave them in the comments down below. And stay tuned for more videos on medicine, OBGYN, pregnancy, luxury bags, makeup, whatever it may be, because I'm not just defined as an OBGYN and as a doctor. I am much more than that, so I want to share it with you. I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for listening. I love you. Bye.